Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, February 22nd, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan, and today we are going to, we're going to do our regular thing. It is just a regular Monday Discourse kind of day. I'm Tristan, the host of Step Back History and Tristan Won't Shut Up. I have a streaming schedule that I'm going to go into right now. All this is going to be Eastern Standard Time, as you all know now. I stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. Mondays from 12 to 2, I do the Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder, who will be joining us shortly. Tuesday nights from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight, which is a show with just me. And then Fridays, I do the Reactor from 12 till 2, which is a stream where I react to things that people submit to a thing. It's pretty fun. You'll have a good time if you show up, of course. Just gotta get the music, the volume that I like. Seems that Romeo has entered the room. Yeah, there we go. And I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you want to help my work, you can support at patreon.com/stepbackhistory or buy a super chat or a subscription on Twitch. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription per month. And if you don't use it, Amazon just keeps your money. So I recommend that you use it every month. on some independent Twitch creator, and if you choose Step Back, I'll be very grateful. And Romeo, get out of the garbage. For content coming up at the moment, I am working on the script for the next Step Back video. I don't have an ETA on that yet, except that before March 15th. But I'm hoping that, if everything goes smoothly this week, then I might be able to finish. I might be able to shoot it and edit it. I might have it out by next week sometime. And I'm also working on a Tristan Won't Shut Up video that the script is finished, and I'll probably film it tomorrow. So film it and edit it on Wednesday, and hopefully you'll get a new Tristan Won't Shut Up video Thursday? We'll see. We'll see what happens. A lot can stall these kinds of things, obviously. I'm going to give you guys a link for if you want to submit questions and stuff to these streams that I do. So I'll put a link in the chat, so you guys should be seeing it right now. And, of course, this channel has always new people showing up. So if this is your first time watching a Step Back stream, please make yourself known in the chat, because we have a very active chat community that is happy to see new faces. So please say hello. And on that note, I think we have covered all the things. So I think it's time to call Mia. So let's do this. Oh my.
Oh my.
Hello.
Welcome. No, when you called me.
Yeah, welcome to the call.
Welcome to the call. Hello, I'm Mia Mulder.
This time we're going to do it at the beginning of the show instead of randomly in the middle of it. Answer two questions that I often have to answer when I go places. Who are you, and what are you doing here?
I don't know, and I don't know. My name is Mia Mulder. I am your friend. And I also do YouTube history, video essays, things. I make good stuff. I make video essays about things that I want to talk about.
You're like the Jack FM of YouTubers.
I don't know what that means.
Jack FM is a series of radio stations in Canada and the US that advertises itself as we play the music that we want to play, and then it's all just complete straight up it's basically just top 40 except for the occasional 90s and 80s and 70s songs, because it's basically music for boomers.
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm that, basically. I'm that thing. Whatever that is.
And I'm realizing that everybody who watches these streams are 12 years old, so they don't know what a radio is. So radio is a distant memory.
It's a radio is like a podcast, but live.
Yeah, sort of like what we're doing.
And you have no control over what it is.
Yeah, and also you can get fired for swearing.
Oh yeah, you can't do that now.
Oh man, I used to work in radio, so I've had a lot of fun moments, when we couldn't get the telephone to work, so we just had to stall on the air live as we were trying to get this woman on the phone so that we could talk to her for an interview, because the entire show was an interview with her.
Oh my god, I've done student radio, which isn't as quite professional, and I've been in very similar situations.
Oh, this was college radio for sure.
Yeah, hell yeah. I like that. A surprising amount of YouTubers are people who also do just college radio shit.
Yeah, college. The two signs that you were going to become a YouTuber growing up were if you did college radio while you were in university, and Something Awful. If you had a Something Awful membership, those are the two.
Yeah.
If you paid $10 to be a member of a comedy forum, you had the dedication to become a content creator in the future.
I still don't fully understand what Something Awful is. Fully. It's just an exclusive forum, right?
It's a forum that you have to pay $10 to become a member of. and just for some weird reason, was like the center of like comedy content in like the early 2000s internet. Sort of before there was a 4chan. 4chan was built of like a pro-anime, pro-pedophilia like break off from that site.
Oh my god.
And a lot of things that you would like a lot of things you'd think like for example, Slender Man started on Something Awful, and a bunch of like internet memes.
Really?
Yeah, like a lot of memes of the early 2000s all started on Something Awful, and a lot of people like a lot of like the far right and like stuff like that started in like forums on there. Like it had different forums of different communities. Like 4chan was started off of the anime forum, which was lovingly titled the Anime Death Tentacle Rape Whorehouse, in the very early 2000s style. And you know, they had Fiad, Fuck You and Die, which was just like people posting random weird shit posting that was intended to be inaccessible and not make sense. It had a whole culture about it, but like the thing is, it was like almost like the Velvet Underground of like early meme culture, because there's a whole thing about the Velvet Underground where it's like that band didn't get a whole lot of viewers, but or a whole lot of listeners, but everybody who listened to the Velvet Underground went and started bands. And like you ask, like a surprisingly high amount of YouTubers all came from being Something Awful posters when they were like 20 years ago or something like that. Like me.
Oh my. Yeah, I was too baby for that. Hence college radio.
Mm-hmm. Like H Bomber Guy was Harry's username on Something Awful for like that's where it came from.
Yeah, so I've heard.
And other
apparently Fallout New Vegas references it, like in jokes from Something Awful forums.
Yeah. Because there was this one time where they tried to make a video game that was called the Zyborn Clock. That was like one of the most like over the top like shitty attempts to make a video game ever. Like it was going to be time travel and steampunk, and the art director who they got to like do the concept art just drew like the most like low skill drawings. Like let me see if I can find Zyborn Clock art. And then like all of the dialogue that they had written for it before it even became a game was just terrible. And so people have been making memes about the Zyborn Clock for ages. And there's one part where there's a character named Johnny Five Aces who looks terrible. Like I'll show you the concept art for this game.
Can't wait to see this. It's horrifying visage. Oh my god.
I'll show.
Well, I mean, it's for hobby art. It's not bad. For professional video game concept art,
yeah.
Why does he have a bulge though?
Yeah, that's fun.
The bulge.
And there was like this really like let me see if I can find the quote. Because the game was supposed to be about time travel, and for a game about time travel, they described what time travel was. So, yeah, that's the secret behind my Twitter username. Okay. I'm trying to find. Know Your Meme has a whole page about this. So
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
What a weird internet subculture that I'm so glad I never was part of.
It was weird. Okay, here we go. So, imagine 4 balls on the edge of a cliff. Say a direct copy of a ball nearest the cliff is sent to the back of the line of balls and takes the place of the first ball. The formerly first ball becomes the second becomes the third, and the fourth falls off the cliff. Time works the same way. And so, there is in Fallout New Vegas a guy, like a skeleton next to 5 ace cards on a table, and it's on the edge of a cliff with there's 4 balls at the edge of the cliff. So that's
my god, I never got it until now.
Yeah, Um, why are you hiding this from chat? I'm not hiding it from chat. I thought I showed you guys.
I can't believe I finally got it because I've seen that reference like every single time I play Fallout New Vegas. I see it and I don't get it. I have no idea what the hell it means.
Do you feel better now that you know what it means?
I mean, it doesn't really add to the pleasure, does it?
I haven't played Fallout New, but like it's one of those examples where like you know how like there's like this hype cycle of communities, of online communities where they start off being proud of the community and then it instantly like just becomes like super cringe and like things like DashCon happen and everything falls apart. So there was a time where people were almost proud to be members of something awful before it was a great shame. And they were like, look, we can make these great goon projects. And one of them was they were going to make a video game, and it just turned into an absolute disaster. Like many quote unquote goon projects. But they did Photoshop contests that ended up creating a lot of the memes that we know of today. And like a lot, like you'd be surprised by how much of like early meme culture was like forged in the fires of Mount something awful.
Oh god.
And now,
well, thank God we're free from that.
Yeah, and well, it's still around. It's still around for some reason. I still check it every once in a while, but yeah, it was like a notoriously cliquey and exclusive forum where like people ripped on each other constantly. It was a whole thing. And
so it's just Twitter but smaller.
It's
what I'm getting from here. Yeah,
I always think like one of the things I always heard is like the best way to become funny is to be in a writer's room with a bunch of other funny people. So it's just a bunch of people who thought they were funny, hanging out in a forum where they were all trying to out funny each other, and it sharpened a lot of people's wit, and so it became a thing. And now, as I said, a bunch of YouTubers are now former people from that site.
Former posters.
Former posters.
I guess it explains a lot about Mr. Bumber Guy's aesthetic style in his videos.
Mm-hmm. I was on there. I think Thought Slime used to be on there. Like it was.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other, but because it was all from different eras. Because Harry is baby. And when I was on there, he was like in middle. Like he was like he had a single digit age. Because he's baby.
He's baby.
You're all baby.
I'm also baby.
Okay.
Although like the big 3-0 is coming quick.
Yup.
It's nearing.
It was a fine I had a fine birthday with it. There was no coronavirus when I turned 30, so I got to do fun things.
Well, that's good. Yeah, hopefully there won't be on mine either in 2 years, in 2 months. But you know what? There might be.
Coronavirus. What's it called? COVID-21.
It might happen. It might happen.
Yeah.
Like we're joking about it right now, but I remember joking in like February of last year, like a year ago, being like, this China virus, and here we are.
I always was like a little worried about it because I was in one of like the 2 places on Earth that got hit by SARS, which was sort of like the unnecessary, or what's it called, the prequel to COVID, which only
the dress rehearsal.
Yeah, which only happened in Wuhan, China, and Toronto. But this time it is fine. Okay, I got the first question, and I have to say. Yeah. The first question's the name for the first person I can't pronounce because they wrote their name in what I can only imagine is Viking runes. This is their name.
Oh God.
I don't know. I can't speak Viking runes.
I mean, neither can I.
I'll put the name in the chat because I don't even know if the alphabet can handle it, but yeah.
It's message at Tristan.
Oh.
So it's to you, I think.
Well,
it's what the name is trying to say.
the only question is thoughts on Tito, which I obviously think means they're talking about Tito Jackson, the member of the Jackson Five, the brother of what's it called? The brother of Michael Jackson and the other Jacksons. The minds that's not coming to me right now.
That's the only Tito that you know of.
I mean, I guess they could be asking about the dictator of Yugoslavia, but
It's unlikely.
I'm not. I don't know why people would want my opinion on the dictator of Yugoslavia at all, but I don't know. Okay, what do I know about Tito? He was interesting. He was part of the Third World, much like you were.
Yes.
Except you were born after the Cold War, so it doesn't really matter. But so Tito was the guy who was like, "Hey, we're gonna be communist, but also we're gonna do capitalism, and we're gonna break off from the Soviet Union and just kind of do our own thing."
We're just gonna hang out for ourselves for a bit.
Yeah, they're gonna try market socialism, where private corporations exist, but the profits are redistributed. So it was an interesting concept where like you'd have private businesses like we have now, but all profits are taken by the state and redistributed.
It's very interesting. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah. There was the whole problem where Tito basically was a dictator who was holding together what probably should have been, as we learned in the late 90s, several countries with a brutal iron fist. And that as soon as he was taken out of power, it led to like a decade of fighting to this day where, as I think we talked about this in like last week's stream when we were talking about Macedonia, like there's still shit that hasn't been resolved about the breakup of Yugoslavia to this day.
Listen, the Balkans is complicated and has been for some time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. To unravel the mystery of the Balkans, we first need to go back to the First Crusade.
Yes.
Probably earlier, honestly. The Roman colonization of what is today Romania.
It's like, how do you explain what happened to? How do you explain the breakup of Yugoslavia? We start with the Ottoman Empire.
The fall of the Eastern Roman Empire.
The story of Yugoslavia begins when the first humans in the Ice Age start crossing into Europe.
God. When the Roman colonies on the other side of the Adriatic.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know.
When Australopithecus evolved into the early Homo sapiens,
oh God,
there was a Balkans.
I like the idea. Like, obviously, I'm not Slavic at all. I've dated various Slavic peoples, but that sounds weird. That's a weird thing to say. I've dated entire peoples.
You dated every Slavic person you have dated.
Everyone. Every single one. So I am actually Yugoslavia. No. But like, I feel like the idea of Yugoslavia is interesting. Like from an historical perspective. Obviously my time period is like the 1800s, where Yugoslavia is like even bigger than Yugoslavia actually ended up being. Including, parts of modern-day Greece and Bulgaria.
And a good chunk of what should be Yugoslavia. Parts of that weren't Yugoslavia were Yugoslavia, and parts that weren't in Yugoslavia at the time were just like part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was probably the messy bitch of European empires.
The messy bitch of empires? I mean, you're not wrong.
They were like, what if we just took these? Like, one was like, I'm at the Austrian Empire, and the other one was like, I'm at the Hungarian Kingdom, and then they were like, I'm at the combination Austrian Empire Hungarian Kingdom.
Oh my God.
plus a bunch of Yugoslavia for no reason, except for that they wanted it and it's theirs. Anyways,
Anyway,
Tito. One of the things that I always say that kind of gets that I think would be interesting was like, Tito was a brutal, iron-fisted dictator who somehow kept this artificial country going for much longer than it probably should have. And the end of his regime, which basically resulted in Serbian dominance over the region for a long time, resulted in multiple decades of conflicts and issues today. And I always think of it like Iraq and Saddam Hussein, because Saddam Hussein also did a very similar thing.
yeah.
And when Saddam Hussein was taken out of power, it resulted in a complete breakdown and weird stuff happening.
It turns out that that's not like the best way to do things.
Yugoslavia was the Belgium of the Balkans. Interesting.
No, because Yugoslavia existed.
That's true. Belgium is a fake country that they added to the history books to convince you of the European Union being a good idea. Seriously, look in the books.
You're not wrong.
Look in the books. You can't. What's it called? There's no references to Belgium before the European Union. Didn't exist.
Didn't exist.
So. In conclusion, Tito is a land of contrasts.
Tito is a land of contrast. Yes.
Okay. The next one we got here is from. Oh no. Orange Man. Where there's two A's and a J. Orange is spelled Oranjaa, which makes me think that we're dealing with a Dutch here.
Dealing with the Dutch. Oh no.
And after what we said about the Netherlands last week.
I'm half Dutch. I can make fun of them. It's fine.
We have made so many enemies of major European countries on this stream.
I say every week, if they didn't want to be made fun of, they shouldn't have conquered half the world. I'm just saying. I can make fun of the Belgians and the Dutch as much as I want. Yeah. If the Dutch didn't want to be made fun of, they shouldn't have conquered Indonesia.
Yeah, we'll stop making fun of you if you give Saint Martin independence.
Do they want independence?
I have no idea. There's what's it called? It's a whole thing over like the Caribbean is a fun mix of all sorts of stuff that's going on.
Yes.
There's an island in the Caribbean that last poll had 30% support of trying to be annexed by Canada.
In the Caribbean?
Okay, so
wait, what?
Okay, so there's an island called the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Yes.
That were a British colony. And when the British gave them independence, they were there was this idea, this interesting galaxy brain idea that they would give the Turks and Caicos to Canada. Turks and Caicos is independent now, but every once in a while, some Canadian politician is like, hey, Turks and Caicos, you want to be part of Canada? Including one time where the premier of Nova Scotia tried to annex the Turks and Caicos into Nova Scotia.
Sure. I mean, if the people there want that to be, sure.
Obviously, Canada, for its national interest, needs a warm water port. But the idea would be is that in exchange for sweet, sweet development, that it would become like the place where Canadians would go on their tropical vacays. They're still British, so the Turks and Caicos are still a British colony, and multiple polls, because this idea has been floating around for decades, there's this idea that Turks and Caicos, like a significant portion of them are like, yeah, I'd join Canada. Fun other one, this is more in your wheelhouse. Did you know that after World War they offered Armenia as a protectorate. Like during the mandate system, they offered Canada the Armenian mandate.
Okay.
We turned it down. But there was a possibility that Armenia could have gotten its start as a Canadian mandate.
Oh my god.
Which is just a fun combination of words to say.
You're basically taking an AI and telling it to
alternate history bot.
An alternate history bot, trying to come up with like new mods for Hearts of Iron.
Whenever like there's like this period back when there was like fewer countries where Canada was one of a smaller group of countries that it was like positioned to be given way more like actual power than it should have gotten. Luckily they turned it down, and now we just are like kind of our irrelevant middle power status, as we're called.
Middle power status.
Yeah, that's what Canadians call themselves, a middle power that punches above its weight in diplomacy. Because we're not a major power, we're not like America, but we can influence things because it's like a country of 37 million people that has like a G7 that's in the G8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you see the U.S. vaccinated as many people in one day than Canada has total? Yeah, Canada is fucking behind as shit. In what's it called? In
vaccinations.
Yeah, we are so behind. It is so bad. To the point
I
where
feel like Sweden's also falling like very much behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, America has all the vaccines. They won't give it to us.
They took all the vaccines.
All right. Okay. So, those are the two questions. Now we're gonna get into the by new people. So we're gonna get into the regulars now. All right. So this one's from Pim Cormans, who I have seen is in the chat. I have recently been stumbling upon some anarcho-transhumanist literature, and one thing that speaks out to me is how they want to give people the ability to change their neurodiversity. Like if you are neurotypical and the technology exists to give one a neurodivergence, like autism or ADHD, then they should be able to get so and vice versa. I will admit, as someone on the autism spectrum, I am finding a lot of difficulties coming to terms with this. I feel like this viewpoint can make sense. A comparison to gender transitioning is made. However, I also feel like it can lead to dark places, like pathologizing of neurodiversity, like what Autism Speaks does comes to mind, and also shows a certain fetishization of neurodiversity I am feeling uncomfortable with. I also feel like cheated by this. It kind of reminds me of Mio's video on transsexuals and suffering, where you see people suddenly breezing through stuff that was frustrating for me personally, and it is annoying and frustrating. As a fellow neurodivergent, how do you feel about this? Are they correct? Am I a stick in the mud?
No, I think it's definitely something to be apprehensive about. Also, we never answered Orange Man's question. We just trailed off by the username and moved on.
Oh, right. What was the question was? Oh, should we still care about Michael Moore and his documentaries? He's okay. The thing is, he was about as radical as you could get like 20 years ago, but we're on the harder stuff now, is the answer. He's sort of
We've moved on.
Like now he does the podcast circuit, and everyone is like, the podcast circuit is entirely made up of him. Like his latest big thing was trying to get everyone to vote for Joe Biden. And then he wrote an open letter about how he hopes that Joe Biden will be really progressive, and tried to appeal directly to him to do all the things that Bernie Sanders would have done. And that's about and also like how he's like, I met Joe Biden. I really like him. I want him to be, to do better and to be good. And it's like, everybody who comes on the podcast with him is always just like, bruh, have you seen the world? Have you seen evidence? So Michael Moore, I feel like, was very progressive for when Michael Moore was very influential for me when how I became a leftist, because he made a thing that said, "Hey, do you think that maybe George Bush is bad?" in 2002, when I was like 14 years old, and I was like, "Hey, George Bush is bad because he's invading all these countries. I like Michael Moore now." But that
it was pretty big for the time.
Yeah, but now we're so much past that.
Yeah, his entry level, getting into progressive stuff. Like, yeah, he's not bad, but also like, it's a bit boring.
Yeah. All right. Now we can get on to the neurodivergence and transhumanism talk that we
I feel like in theory, being able to alter your brain to do whatever is like, I mean, I feel like that's congruent with the whole anarcho-transhumanist vibe, sure, but at the same time it's just like for what reason?
Like, I would love to be able to jack my brain so that I derive sexual pleasure from cleaning toilets or something, but that's not like, so like I could see some things about like specifically because there is something we do that is similar to this kind of process today. It's called taking drugs.
Okay, yeah.
Like if I was like for example, ADHD people take essentially amphetamines to be able to focus on things. Which is like, okay. And if there is like a large discussion about how different types of neurodivergences can actually help you in certain ways, which like, to see these things not as disabilities, but as, different abilities. Like, for example, ADHD is a situation where you are chronically starved of stimulation, but it gives you a lot more interest in wide variety. It makes you more creative, and there's like thoughts that it gives you like decent leadership skills and things like that have been told. Or like ADHD people do really well in the creative fields and then starting businesses and stuff like that, which like I like to believe that it's not just that my brain sucks and it does bad things, but and that it refuses to behave. But would somebody be like, then they would like give themselves ADHD so that they can be more creative? I don't know. That feels very much like the sort of fetishization of depression when it comes to artists and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it feels like almost a bit voyeuristic, right? Like, oh, I'm going to see how these people have it. I was like, okay, for what constructive purpose though? Like, it feels a bit like I don't know, like I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. Although, okay, so I'm not gonna devil's advocate, but I'm gonna try to explore where this space could go. One could be that it would be a great way to try and bridge the qualia gap when it comes to things like neurodivergence. Like, your average person doesn't know what having ADHD is like, and very often that leads to them having a pretty strong empathy gap with like the shortcomings that come with ADHD, forgetting things, not like, missing deadlines, being late, that kind of stuff. And if you were, able to experience what it's like to have that temporarily, that would hopefully give you a better understanding of what people are going through and bridge that empathy gap. Maybe?
Maybe. I feel like I don't know. I feel like if we ever reached a point where, because like the terms we use for neurodivergence are all socially constructed anyway, right? Like they're just like different ways to label the human condition. And I feel like if we ever reached a point where this is even physically possible, we would sort of have to rewrite the entire word book on what neurodivergence even is in the first place, right? If we have the technological means to change it on a whim, you know, I feel like then suddenly the rule book would have to change as well, like about how we even talk about these things.
If we have an understanding of the brain, yeah, if you're implying that we have the ability to understand and manipulate the brain to the point where we are able to give and take away neurodivergence and stuff like that, then I feel like we're in a very different place when it comes to our understanding of mental health in general that we probably can't even comprehend at this point. It does remind me of a short story I wanted to write at one point where you take the medicalization of mental health to like its extreme, and the technology exists to treat mental health exactly like physical health, where it's like, oh, I have a depression. All right, well, we're going to go put you in for treatment. We'll cure that right away. It's like, okay.
What a world.
Well, I was going to be like, is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know.
Well, it's an interesting question, I guess.
Because where is the line between a mental disorder and like who, just the nature of who you are as a person? Where's that line? That was sort of the thing I wanted to explore, which I'll probably write someday. I have ideas of trying to do creative writing someday, and it's like, it's just like, I feel like if I do it and then I put it out in the public attached to my name and it fails, it'll be like the worst thing ever. If that makes sense. Like doing something like creative writing compared to like, you know, the kind of stuff we're doing is like scarier.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like you could do it. I feel like you could nail it.
We'll see. So that was a really good question though. And this is one of my favorite things about transhumanist talks is that we can like, we're plunging into, like, we have to like completely change our understanding of things that are established through just the fact that we have technological limitations and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one we got here is from our buddy Christos.
Christ?
Yeah, Christ.
All the demons in chat were just banished.
Yep.
That's a good supernatural joke. If you didn't get that.
Christos is from the Turkish Republic of Cyprus, or at least from the side that is being illegally occupied by the Greeks. I have to stop just like taking arbitrary stances on disputed territories. That make
sense. Like that's a hot, spicy area. Where I will not tread.
All right. So the question is, what is your greatest critique of liberalism, and what do you think liberalism does well that leftists should emulate?
I feel like liberals are pretty good at just like marketing themselves to the mainstream. Just generally. I feel like the left has big problems with that.
Yeah, it has a lot of power by just having the inertia of being the water we swim in, I guess.
Yeah. Like Yab says, it's marketing. Like, I feel like a lot of time when even leftists who claim that they're doing the opposite of this, they also do it. Like people who, like they'll try to do some sort of real world activists change, and then they immediately jump into the like either like the deep dialectic, or start talking about like esoteric theory to the point where like most people would just like I don't care. Whereas liberals can just be like, yeah, okay. Whereas liberals can just be like, I want to lower taxes and make you more money, yay! And then they get votes. like that. It's they're still like they have a similar sort of mindset, but then the liberals still have like an ideology behind what they're doing. It's just like that's.
Yeah. I'll say a couple things, and including I'll say a nice thing about liberals in case there are liberals in the chat. So the greatest critique of liberalism is definitely that it is an ideology that is growing ever more out of touch with reality. And it has assumptions about how people work, how economies work, how social structures work that are wrong. They weren't true when these ideas were developed in the 18th or 17th and 18th centuries. And it doesn't work today. And a lot of the world's suffering is due to the fact that we have prioritized a lot of things in the service of this idea that like market capitalism is good, that like there's a natural aristocracy, that people are like, there are people who are naturally more talented than others, that the market decides the value of different like human lives, different professions, all those kinds of things. That is very baked into our culture, and I think is something that needs to be broken, because especially if you went through the last year, like the fact that the least paid people in our society are the ones that we deem the essential workers, while the people who were kind of optional workers are the ones who are the professional class paid the most, who were staying at home, shows a lot about like just how big the discrepancy is between how valuable somebody is to the economy and how much they're paid. A good thing about liberalism that leftists should try and emulate, and this is going to be a little bit of spice here, is the emphasis on freedom. Leftists, at least a little bit more modern leftists, have adopted this, but like the emphasis on, I think this chat and the streams that I've done have shown that when it comes to like beliefs in like pluralism of ideas and pluralism of things like faith and culture and an appreciation for the differences in humanity, socialists will, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm saying, and this is a thing that some people are doing, but will minimize that in service of like more materialistic stuff, which I get and I think is a good thing, because you can't eat liberty and you can't clothe your children with freedom of speech and stuff. But to see that those kinds of things are valuable things that we should see as valuable in some way is a thing I do appreciate, and is a thing I wish that people weren't so easy to dismiss on the left. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Because like I keep thinking of like when Emma Goldman went to the USSR, and she met Lenin once, and basically they just dismissed her as an anarchist because she was like complaining about how there's no freedom of speech, there's no like nobody's free to say things, like there's no like everybody's just sort of controlled, and then they were like, well, that's just not important, that's secondary to the material cause or whatever, and it's like that's sort of a thing that I'm kind of cribbing, but kind of not. It's sort of a thing that Chomsky says about liberalism, because he tries to sort of reinterpret like anarchism as sort of the end result of socialism and liberalism, like they're both their ideologies mixed together in a weird way. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry that I'm like a bit. That's how you should do. Sorry that I'm a bit like out of it. Like I'm realizing that I'm like extraordinarily tired today. Way more than I thought that I would be.
This is the what's it called? This is the discrepancy where, as we said, I'm streaming at coffee time and you're streaming at beer time.
Yeah, I'm streaming at coming up to 7 p.m. here. And I've been carrying stuff all day. I'm working, so apologies for me being a bit like sleepy.
I'll just have to find a good enough Lord of the Rings reference joke to ignite your spirits.
That's all I need, really.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one also comes from Christos. Have there been any empires in history that conquered regions and then just made the conquered equal subjects in their empire? Not like full democracies or something, but like representation and stuff. Besides the Ottomans, they're famous for that. That's definitely what France thinks it does.
Yeah, France tells itself it does that.
Don't you remember the part of France that is called Algeria?
Yes, the part of metropolitan France. What are you talking about?
Like, France does...
Integral part of France.
Like, France still has colonies today that use the euro and, like, vote in elections and stuff like that. Like, French Guiana... That's why one of the weirdest borders is there is a land border between Brazil and France.
Yeah.
I've seen
it's
pictures...
It's the largest border.
Yeah. And like there's this pair of islands off the coast of Canada called Saint Pierre and Miquelon, which they hung on to because of the cod in that part of the Atlantic after the 7 Years' War. They fought for it and Haiti, and they lost everything else.
Worth.
Yeah, and they are still part of France, and they're still part of France. And they use the euro, but it's like a half-hour boat ride off the coast of Canada. It's the easiest way to get to France. So that's a weird. That's an aspect of this whole thing. I don't know that much about French Guiana, and so France is one that comes up, but obviously they don't actually do it because. Maybe they do today. I don't know. I don't know where like the Guyanese people stand in the overall structure of the French country, but
I don't know. I feel like when it comes to like racism, the French are pretty good at it generally. Like other empires though, I don't really know.
That like added countries and then were like, you are equals with us. The Ottomans were pretty good on that.
They were.
That's why
I feel like. Does the German Empire count if we go before before German Empire colonialism, like when they just unified Germany?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like conquered part. No, that's not true, is it? Because they conquered Alsace-Lorraine, and the people who lived in Alsace-Lorraine weren't fully equal to the rest of Germans. So it doesn't even work with just Germans.
Yeah.
Damn it.
The Ottomans were so good at this that they ended up creating another empire that challenged them, which was the oh god, what were they called? They were an Egyptian empire made up of like an Egyptian warlord. God, they're like in Europe. They're in EU4 too.
Mamluk?
The Mamluks. Yeah, the Mamluks.
Yeah.
So.
Don't know enough about the Mamluks, unfortunately.
Persia, Mughals, Byzantium, kind of. The Aztecs did not do that. The Aztecs...
oh, God, no.
The Aztecs had a very strict hierarchical system. They were originally supposed to be an alliance of 3 different city-states, but very quickly one of those cities became the dominant city-state, and the other were like extreme lesser partners. Mamluks far before Ottomans? Okay, I think I'm messing something up then.
It's something there. I don't.
They even raided Frankish Cyprus. Okay, I'm thinking of a different. There was a time where the Ottomans made a power that rivaled theirs, but it was, and somebody pointed out the Caliphate, which is like, okay. Yeah, I guess if you think of like the Abbasid Caliphate, that was pretty decentralized. I don't know. I guess like very, very. There are people who have definitely wanted to say that it is what they did, but it's not a thing that's very often happened.
No, that kind of defeats the point of empire, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, not many people have made empires like you do in EU4, where you make a protectorate and then you feed it a bunch of territory and then integrate it later. The ultimate way to expand in EU4.
Alexander's empire? Nah. Again, they like to say that that's what they did, but that's not what they did.
They conquered a whole bunch of Asia, and then Alexander just like gave things to his best friends, and then died. And then everyone's like, yeah. What about the HRE?
I mean, that depends on like how. Is that really part of the empire? It's not really, though, is it?
The U.S. with the moon.
The U.S. with the moon. That's fair. You know, the people on the moon are treated.
With the exception of Newt Gingrich, they have always been okay with lunar independence.
No, it doesn't work because the only people who have been on the moon are white men in the 60s, and they were treated better than people already in America. So people on the moon were treated better than subjects than people who were already part of America. So it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't like this whole America kowtowing to the interests of moon people. Moon people sounds like it's a racist term for something, but I don't know what it would be.
It really sounds like it's a potential slur, but I don't know for what. The moon people. I mean, isn't that just Americans?
I mean, they are the only people who've been to the moon, so I guess so.
The moon people.
America. Maybe that should be the new, like when the American Empire falls. That's what that's the slur they'll be derogatorily referred to as, the moon people. Okay. What's it called? This is approaching levels of silly. And this is a explicitly anti-silly podcast show.
This is a very serious show. Extraordinarily serious.
Okay. And let's see what we got next. This is going to be very much the Christo show today, because we haven't answered. He had a lot of questions for us.
Sorry for my exhaustedness. I'm going to take a nap like the second this is over.
It's all good. Just got to get you through. We're already halfway through. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, suppose you're arguing with an anti-abortion person and you use the violinist argument that Philosophy Tube used. What would you say if they just responded by saying that they think the state should be able to force you to donate blood, bone marrow, or non-vital organs to save someone's life? I'm specifically saying non-vital organs or something like eye implants, because if a person is anti-abortion but consistently, quote, pro-life, they would say that those cases are deliberately killing or permanently impairing somebody, whereas high-risk pregnancy or non-vital organ blood would only have incidental death risks. P.S. Sorry if I'm spamming you with abortion questions. I'm from a really pro-life country, and people would probably respond in these ways. So this is the Tuvix question. The evilest that Janeway has ever been, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The Tuvix incident. I watched that because I always thought that it was just like a joke meme episode, and then I was like, holy shit, this went real dark.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
Okay.
It's definitely a wild one. I mean, I feel like the argument you would have to say then back is like the violinist argument is an analogy to something that is actually happening. To sort of exaggerate the circumstances, to be like, no, I think the state should be able to force people to do that. Okay, well, then I would say that. Okay, well, do you argue for that? Like, do you argue for that? Like, that the state, because it almost has to. I don't think they can do the whole. It can only be like non-essential organs or something like that. I don't think that works, because then it's no longer analogous to the violin argument anymore. Then you're just making shit up. It has to be vital organs. Like you have to argue. You have to make them argue, being like either you think the state can kill or you think the state can't. It's one of the two. If you think that abortion is killing, then the analogy also has to be about killing.
I'd be surprised if
and I would say that, like, if you argue for that, then I would like to see you argue for that. Like, that, don't just say like pro-life. You should argue for that in all terms of society. You should say that everyone should be registered with all of their healthy organs, and if someone needs an organ transplant, then they should take it from you by force. If you are making that argument, I'll believe you. I'll be on your side. Hell yeah, good go. But if they don't want to make that argument, which I'm assuming that they won't, then
Yeah, I also like it goes into other philosophical areas of like bodily autonomy and whether or not the state, like if the state has the right to harvest your organs at any time, at what point does the state have the right to just take your labor whenever you need it? And like at what point, like, because like if you're gonna go like, oh yeah, I don't think people should have body autonomy, you're essentially then advocating for slavery, because you're essentially saying that human beings are property of the state, which can go into all sorts of weird directions. Really, fun, like lots of fun parts.
all bad.
Yeah.
I should say though, like I am also a registered organ donor.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know where I follow this.
It's a complicated. What's it called? I was going to say it's complicated, but in some ways it's really not. There's a lot of ways that when it comes to the abortion debate, there's a lot of ways that people try to make it complicated. But at the end of the day, it is the question on whether or not you own your own body.
Yeah.
And
like if they say that they don't believe that, then it's like, okay, fine, you don't believe in body autonomy, but then
you're a threat to humanity in my mind.
And yeah, that has like horrifying implications to what else you believe, and you're just wrong. That to me that's like saying that like that's like some far right person being like, no, I don't believe in any freedom of speech. Actually, I believe that the left should be censored. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, nothing to do with the current ongoing debate regarding free speech or this analogy with abortions. Like, has nothing to do with ongoing debates. Has horrifying implications for potential future debates, and no one should listen to you regarding fucking anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to the only people I could think of who would actually be like, no, I actually believe that the state owns the bodies of the people who live in it. You're getting into like some of the most like esoteric weird Nazis.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the only place where I can think of where people went that extreme. So there's that.
Yeah. It's like some hardcore fascism connected to that.
Yeah.
Like even more hardcore fascism than actual fascist states.
This feels like it could almost be. This almost sounds like a science fiction fascism that could. This is the Vidians. We're gonna go all Voyager references today. This is the Vidians who believe that they can just steal people's organs with their little pokey stick thing.
I don't remember who the Vidians are.
The Vidians were the aliens in Voyager that had a disease called the phage, and they were basically just harvesting people's organs randomly to keep themselves alive. But honestly, you just stumbled onto a line of thinking where if it was completely done, it would be one of the most horrifying situations I could imagine. And now I want to implement that in a very dark science fiction story. So thank you.
A truly horrifying dystopia.
Yeah. Okay. Suppose Russia and Turkey were at the same stage in negotiations for joining the European Union. They've stopped occupying other countries and have full democracy and human rights. Would they be allowed to join, or would Europe be too racist and Islamophobic to let them in? Also, if one of them did join in such a case, which of the two is more likely?
Oh, Russia, 100%. I mean, if we're talking about all things else being equal, and like Russia and Turkey are both super woke, no occupation, super hadi-duda, then I think the biggest barrier to entry would probably just be like the casual fucking like Islamophobia and racism of Europe generally, and like that, like, you know, that Islamophobia is going to affect Turkey more than it's going to affect Russia.
Yeah.
Plus Russia is just like has a bigger economy, bigger country, bigger military, stuff like that. Like, it's more advantageous for the European Union to have that in the game. So like that's probably what would happen. Easy.
The balance
Although
of power
none of this would ever happen.
Yeah. Just the idea of like Russia joining. I mean, there could be like the long plan. Russia joins the European Union because it would instantly, completely eclipse Germany as like the powerhouse of the continent.
Would it though?
Russia's got like a lot of people, doesn't it?
It does. But Germany has a big economy. Hang on, I'm gonna see what's the GDP of Russia.
Doesn't Russia supply like a good chunk of like Europe's oil and natural gas and stuff?
I don't know.
Because of that Caspian Sea.
No, like Germany is a bigger economy than Russia.
Well,
by far actually. Almost double the economy. Like, Russia probably has more people, but like in terms of like economic power, which is the dominant political force within Europe, Germany wins. Germany has that.
Yeah, the
runner-up in Europe now is France. So
yeah, I was going to say Russia even has a smaller GDP than France.
Yeah, so like it would have similar, I'm guessing, economic impact as France.
So my guess is that the biggest thing that would happen, and this would cause a lot. We all know how well this turned out. Is that it would be a country that is less developed but has a whole lot of people, which is sort of the situation for when Poland joined the European Union, and like freaking the British left over Polish people just existing too close to them. So,
oh yeah, like the European Union would implode. Just from like people having a panic attack over free movement of Russians in Europe. That's not saying that like Russians are bad or anything. I'm saying that like people in Western Europe are racist as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, America has a very basic view of racism, I feel like, because here in Europe we're racist towards other white people.
You're racist towards people who live in a slightly different region of the same country you live in.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. The British have it down to such a science that they have, in London, they have racism towards people who live in different, like, blocks away from the city. They have racism against people based on your accent because you live in a slightly different part of the same city.
Yeah. So, like, can you imagine the racism that most of Europe would have towards Russia?
Especially if they're spending, like, you know, a good chunk of the 20th century building up Russia as like the enemy people.
God. I wonder who would be next. There would probably be like, because Europe at that point would like have to find another villain, and I'm guessing that would be China.
Russia would have a huge say in the European Parliament, though. Holy crap!
Probably.
Like, what's the population of the European Union is like 400 million people or something like that, isn't it?
Let me check. It's slightly less now. Yeah, 440 million.
Yeah, Russia's population is 144 million people. So all of a sudden, Russians would represent... One country would represent, like, over like a quarter. Yeah, like 1 in 5 people in the European Union.
What the fuck is the population of Germany? Damn, Germany. Germany has a population of 83 million people. It's a small ass country. A lot of people.
Made you say I love Amazon. Thank you for subscribing. Much appreciated. Do you support everything about Marxism?
Every single thing, 100%. Every single little thing, 100%. Everything, that even shit that Marx didn't even write about. The secret Marx novels that dispute everything that I said before.
Yeah,
of course, I'm kidding. Of course not.
Marx had some good ideas, but he was also writing like 200 or 150 years ago or whatever now, and his stuff is outdated, but still like has some universal truth to it. It's just like, yeah, he didn't see like, I mean, if Marx was 100% true and we 100% believed in him, he thought that communism was going to happen like in the 19th century. So, you know,
which of course happened. Mm-hmm. We all live in a communist society now, aren't we?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we can both safely say that we both don't really, like, you know, Marx failed to consider, as the meme says, cat boys. So
yeah. Yeah, if he doesn't explain femboy Hooters, I don't understand like how you can understand political economy, but okay.
Yeah.
Because there's so much demand for femboy Hooters and it yet still doesn't exist.
Yeah, it still doesn't exist. Yeah, how do you explain this obvious glitch in capitalism?
Mm-hmm. I've been seeing a lot of militant leftists talk about arming the proletariat. Oh boy. Mm-hmm. When you mention that the army is overpowered compared to them, they'll say that it's even more of a justification because that means the state is so violent. Would it be a reasonable response to say that they should instead focus on abolishing the military and disarming the police, because that would be less violent to enable nonviolent political movements? Would you say the same is true of the welfare state as an accelerator? Would you say the same with the welfare state against an accelerationist?
I mean, I don't really know about the welfare state part, but like regarding peacefully dismantling the military is infinitely more practical, easy, and safer than somehow arming yourself as a sort of deterrent against it.
Yeah, I would.
Most militaries have an air force. Just the existence of an air force just makes any leftist militia completely worthless if it ever thinks that it's going to fight against the military for some reason. What are you gonna do against like an F-16 fighter jet? What are you gonna do with your fucking AK-47 and like 2 weekends of fire training? What are you gonna do? Nothing. You die.
I'm gonna do a GoFundMe to raise money for the People's F-18.
The People's F-16. Perfect.
No. I mean, F-18, the one that the useless one that decapitates its pilots, the F-18.
Perfect. Like, okay, like there's an argument here that says that, like, in the case of like an insurrection or something, the proletariat can do some sort of guerrilla warfare and destabilize the state to the point of a civil war. Here's the thing, though. I think that's a bad idea. I don't care if, like, 40 years after this insurrection, the People's Revolution somehow succeeds, because one, probably won't, and secondly, during that time, a lot of people are going to die, and even if people don't die, it's going to be miserable for everyone involved. In my mind, having a gun, having a gun, there's nothing wrong with having a gun, I guess, but like arming the proletariat as a solution for like fighting the military or protecting yourself against state violence, I don't know. It doesn't seem like an idea that either has worked or will work.
You're bringing a gun to a bazooka fight.
No, you're bringing a gun to a nuke fight.
Yeah.
The military has nuclear weapons.
The state, if it had an existential...
You're not going to win against it. The only thing that's going to happen by like somehow normalizing guns even more to the point where like more like quote-unquote normal people have guns is that more people are going to die of gun violence. Like, that is a statistical proven fact that is going to happen. And I feel that people who want to argue in favor of arming the proletariat for some reason, they have to argue that this cost in lives is worth the benefits you will get from getting it. And I have yet to hear anyone who can tell me the benefits of arming up, except for the potential of an insurrection or protecting yourself against a militia or something. But that's not really going to work. I mean, even cops today in our normal history, we don't even have to speculate. Cops today have like dropped bombs from airplanes on apartment buildings for the suspicion of like black activism. Who didn't even have guns. Can you imagine what they would do if they actually had guns and if you actually wanted to fight back? Like
we saw that with the Black Panthers, where they killed the head of the Black Panthers. They fired so many bullets that like the structural integrity of the apartment was damaged. So
yeah, like they've already done this. Like nothing's stopping them from doing it more, but with tactical smart bombs from drones, tracking you with like via your cell phone in organization. Like I don't know. It's to me, I just like guns generally. I like shooting guns, but still.
Yeah, the only thing that comes close to like a leftist argument for arming oneself, comes to me anyway, is more of an argument about dealing with the imminent collapse of things. Because if there is, like, if the government does collapse, which, like, you know, it's not an unreasonable thing to think that is a thing that could happen, especially in this day and age. That if that happened, the arms race of the right is definitely far ahead of the arms race of the left. But that is a specific type of situation, and that's a different type of argument.
That's a survivalist prepper argument, and if you're having that argument, sure, that's fine.
I'm not saying that I didn't buy iodine tablets and put them in a box in the basement, but I
mean, you should do that. That's
because of radioactive fallout. We actually got them a while back for free from the government because they probably do this in Sweden too, because it's a thing that sounds like it makes sense. The government gives away free iodine pills to anybody who lives within 100 kilometers of a nuclear power plant, just in case of a meltdown.
No, they don't do that here, I think.
Oh. Well, we had to write to the government to get our free iodine pills. But, because iodine, for anyone who doesn't know, because, like, iodine goes to your thyroid, and your thyroid is the organ in your brain that is most likely to be damaged by radiation sickness. And so, you take, because your body absorbs the radioactive iodine from the the surrounding place, and so if you think that you're going to be in a situation where you are going to be experiencing nuclear fallout, you want to take iodine pills so that you don't end up giving yourself thyroid cancer. It's I've become a little bit of a thinking a little bit more about becoming a prepper, but more in the sense of like I want to learn how to do first aid and keep band-aids around.
Yeah.
I have like I said, when it comes to like prepper stuff and things, I have complex feelings about this kind of stuff. But the idea that we're just going to LARP 1917 and be able to... Even 1917 was more of a response to the collapsing of the government than it was like an actual successful armed insurrection against the state. Even then it was like a really weak, hollowed out state because of the full First World War thing. And even the most deadly weapons in World War I were way closer to what the average person could get their hands on in 1917 than like today. Where like the police in America are going to have armored personnel carriers now. Okay. Next here we got, suppose a crime or bad thing happens in a community with restorative/transformative justice. The perpetrator does what they can to make up for it and is fully rehabilitated according to the community. However, the victim is still resentful and doesn't want them to be reintroduced into the community. Who should the community side with in this situation?
The community. I mean, people get pissy today with like punishment justice being like, I don't want this person out, and it's like, okay, well, sucks. I'm so mean today. I'm so catty today. I'm sorry. But like,
get in, loser. We're overthrowing the state.
Yeah, we can't base our justice system based on what the victim of crimes wants. We know this. That's not a great idea. That it should potentially be an element in any sort of justice system. Sure, we can debate that as much like until the cows come home. But that we can't make that the basis, like the foundational part of it, because then we're no longer talking about having a justice system. Then we're just having like a system that works on the whims of an individual.
It's true.
So like it's so if there is a court, for example, in the society, for example, then the court should decide. I don't care I don't care about this person.
Screw the victim.
Sucks. If they have rehabilitated, if they have done the time, if they've served the time or whatever it is, then they're if they have been restored or whatever to the point where it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we can't punish people more just because one person thinks that we should.
Yeah, to also preempt this too, a lot of restorative justice models have those who have been victimized as part of the crime, as part of the negotiation about what to do as part of that's why it's called restorative justice. It's supposed to be about restoring the wrong that has happened. And so in a lot of like restorative justice cases, it's like for example, the way that they do a lot of justice in Rojava comes down to like getting the parties affected together and working out what are the things that we could do to try and make peace again. In Rojava, it was based on like tribal alliance and stuff like that. But I think that it would be a part of the thing, so that whatever it is that is agreed upon, most victim would have a voice in that, which I think is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like not to like discount their experience of being the victims of crime, but yeah, like they are a voice in a discussion about how is the culture, like what system, what part of our society failed to result in whatever happening. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. The next question we got here is, given that Freud is not good for scientific psychology, but is good for cocaine advocacy, is it useful to use him in this?
Good for Twitter memes, yeah.
Yeah. Is it useful to him? Is it useful to him in the social sciences? People like Lacan and Derrida have used him, and many use their work, but how good is it if the source is problematic? I also mean in his weird takes on sex, etc.
No, I think anyone who uses Freud as a basis for anything is wrong. I mean, I think it's fine to like read Freud. I think people should read Freud, and I think people should read like philosophers who base some of their ideas on Freud's ideas. I think they should read those too. But I think we all have to have. But while you do that, you also have to have in mind that Freud is wrong. Like, provably, demonstrably wrong.
True.
And
I don't.
If you keep that in mind, then it's fine.
When I think of like Lacan and Derrida, though, I don't think of the social science. I think more of the humanities. And if there is something that that Freud has kind of, he's like, if you were to talk about how Freud's used academically today, it's more often in literary analysis and psychoanalytic analysis of literature is useful, if only because the characters created in fiction are products of people whose idea of how minds work is created by people like Freud. And working in like, you know, the idea of the study of symbols and things like that. But yeah, to talk about the objective world using an analytical framework based on Freud is definitely full of issues. A lot of those old psychologists, like freaking Jung. That's why Jordan Peterson is wrong about everything, because he bases all of his psychological analysis on Carl Jung, a freaking like psychologist from the age of we just pulled shit out of our ass science.
It was a better time of science back then, honestly. Once, like at a time when we could just make stuff up.
Yeah. I'm going to take the names out of this one because it's a good question, but I don't want to get into like petty shit that or debates and stuff like that. But in a recent internet debate, somebody whose name rhymes with Bestiny, we're about to dissect a Destiny take, everybody. Made the arguments that cooperatives would ensure a good salary for low-paying jobs and discourage people from going to university and getting high-paying jobs. Do you think that's true? And if so, what would be a good way to counter such tendencies? Man, I love how Destiny is so white and so man that he can just say whatever he wants and people take him seriously.
I was about to say, like, I need to like stew on this for a while.
Psychic
like,
damage again. I'm sorry, we're hurting your brain a lot in this stream.
I need to sort of deconstruct everything that I've learned in my life so far and rebuild it so I can understand what the fuck that means.
Okay, so
like,
Destiny.
What does he base this on?
Kind of the same thing that people like Freud based their things on.
Out of their ass.
Yeah. So Destiny's trying to say that if we made workplaces for what I think we derisively and wrongfully call low skill labor, so if we take the dictatorial workplaces and turn them into co-ops where people have a say, then they might enjoy their job and get not go to the living wage factory schools so that they can go get another job that pays a high paying job. So basically, if people's jobs aren't miserable, then they won't be incentivized to go to university to get jobs that aren't miserable. And that's bad for some reason. When we live in a world where we are way overeducated at this point, trust me, there's no like right now, it's not that we don't have enough educated people. It's just that education's not evenly distributed. And so what I would say is, why do you think that people in low-paying jobs deserve to be paid low? What is it about? Like, what's it called? Why have we made this assumption that because you don't have a university degree, you don't deserve to have a job that makes you happy and that you can live with?
I mean, he's also like arguing that like the vast majority of jobs generally shouldn't pay well.
Which, like, I guess, like, he's gone. Maybe here's the trick. Destiny is what we like to call a mercantilist, where he wants to build the wealth of the nation by working all of its assets as much as possible for as little money, so that the king can raise the bullion necessary to go to war with Spain. Because that's sort of the thinking, like the idea that you need to make sure that everybody is paid as little as possible and everyone's miserable, because then you keep them working, which is very capitalist logic, but it comes from like colonization.
Yeah, it comes from a mercantilist system where you can only view any sort of monetary transaction in terms of wins and losses. Like someone wins and someone loses, which is wrong, first of all.
But Bernie just said, "I'll give you $5 to never entertain a Destiny question again."
I mean, it's based on nothing. First of all, it based on like what?
Yeah, I guess
there's no basis for this assumption. I feel like we can't have a discussion about anything reasonable unless there's any form of basis, even theoretical, for what we're talking about. None of this makes sense.
But Steve Bonnell II is what we like to call in the industry of social justice warriors a white man, and so anything he says, people have to take seriously.
I don't.
I hate that there are people who. Anyways, it's a bad argument that's poorly thought out.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's out of context, but it's probably not.
Yeah, Destiny. Oh, Destiny is so. Here's the thing. I'm going to engage in Destiny talk only on one front, which is how I originally heard about Destiny. Not as a person who makes shit up on the internet and is taken seriously for some reason, but as as possibly the whiniest and shittiest professional StarCraft 2 player I've ever seen. Because he got his start as a StarCraft 2 professional player, where he was, and as a person who also played Zerg, I had to deal with his bullshit a lot. Destiny was the whiniest and shittiest person. He never won tournaments, and every time he lost, he was the sorest loser, next to only, like, I'm trying to remember what that other guy's name was. Indra, or Idra. Another really, like, he was a much better StarCraft player, but he was just as whiny and just as sore a loser. So I always think of Destiny as being like, he couldn't hack it as a StarCraft player, so he decided he wanted to do politics.
Although I gotta say, like, I like one, because where I got introduced in Destiny is actually from where he's sort of the hero. It's his interview with JonTron, where JonTron basically goes full racist live on stream, and that's fun. Not because Destiny is like a really good like debater or orator, but just because JonTron like digs his own grave and buries himself with like very little provocation, and that's just fun.
Yeah, JonTron is like, I don't follow internet debates because I think they're stupid.
You're entirely correct.
But JonTron does seem like somebody who you don't really need to do a whole lot. You just have to be there, and he'll sort of hang himself.
Oh yeah. Oh, guaranteed.
The only good contribution that JonTron has made to the universe is inventing the term commulism.
Commulism. The freaking communists.
Yeah.
Yes. Referring to the the pink hat thing. Truly the vanguard of the revolution.
Yeah, oh boy. We're talking about culture wars that we had like pre-Trump.
Oh, what a good time. Unprecedented times.
Yeah, back when we were just dealing with anti-SJW YouTube and nobody took it seriously. I would say YouTube was a much shittier place back then, but
100%. But at least we knew that. At least we could like take a step away from it. Now I'm in it. Now I'm a YouTuber. Now I have to live here.
Now this is my neighborhood. Okay. How would a socialist society deal with industries that are deleterious to society or the environment if people have a stake in those workplaces?
I mean, ideally, society should be structured in a way that like people don't have to be bound to their workplace.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people should have control over their workplace if they have it, but I don't think society should be bound to that workplace by any sort of coercion or force. So I feel like if we lived in a society where an industry was, I don't know, harmful for the environment and people wanted it to be gone, I think that like even if the workers wanted it to stay there, I think there should be an argument for like closing that, like, I don't know, coal plant down. But
if we lived in a society.
If we lived in a society. But I also think that but that society should also be like, if we're shutting this coal plant down, the workers will be fine. Like, nothing bad will happen to the workers if we shut down the place. So, and that way, people won't defend industries just because they work there.
Yeah.
Which that's kind of what I think is.
Yeah, a lot of
that's
times,
what I think the goal should be of socialism. People talk about socialism just like democracy in the workplace, and that's it. And it's like, yeah, okay, but we also want democracy the freedom to not be connected to that, and I feel like that's also very important.
Yeah. I think that, like, yeah, because a lot of times when you get to these, like, a lot of the problems with, like, deleterious industries clinging to existence comes from the fact that we live in a capitalist economy where the loss of an industry, if we shut down an industry, like, the fact that, like, you have a bunch of people in West Virginia who are against the moving off of coal power isn't due to the fact that they just are horny for coal. It's because the livelihood of their community is dependent on coal mines existing. They don't think about it as, like, they think about it as jobs. They don't think about it, and jobs means money, and money means you buy the treats that you need to live. So if you don't have the money to buy the Pokemon cards, or if the money that you need to buy the Pokemon cards isn't linked to your job, changing and adapting industries to move to, like, it makes capitalism very hard to make big changes to. This is why it's not very dynamic and adaptive, because you can't just be like the Soviet Union that just said, I feel like going to space. We're just going to convert the entire economy to making Sputnik. It's like, you can't do that in a capitalist economy.
I'm going to space. Do not come after me.
So, like, so in my mind, capitalism is the thing that's stopping these things from changing. And so socialism would be able to be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing that comes up with automation. Like, there's people who oppose automation because it would result in a lot of people losing their livelihoods. But it's not like people really, really love being cashiers, and that automating those jobs away would ruin their, like, the joy they get out of life. It's just that they need it because they need the money so that they can buy the Pokemon cards. And so, if the Pokemon cards were not connected to the job, then it would be a different situation.
The Pokemon cards of capitalism.
Yeah.
No, but, like, yeah, like, you're entirely correct. Like, automation, it's so messed up that automation is seen as, like, a bad thing in our economy. Like, we're reducing the amount of labor we have to do to get the same amount of product, and we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? We reduce the amount of labor we have. We have more free time. What are we going to do?
Yeah, it's almost like having an economy where our livelihoods are tied to working, but technology is moving in a direction where less and less work is required to make the economy function. And those are it's almost what's called an internal contradiction in capitalism that Marx wrote about 150 years ago.
My God. My fucking God. These theories correct. Good for them.
Who is this Karl Marx guy I hear so much about?
He was in a comedy duo.
He was the 19th century version of a YouTuber.
He really was, though. Okay, but here's the thing, though. Like, if you look at Marx's, like, super early work, he writes, like, just shitty essays about, like, how much he hates Hegel. What do? We make video essays about how about we hate Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
We're not as deep, you could argue, but, like, a lot of, like, YouTuber scripts are longer than what, like, Marx wrote and come to actually interesting conclusions rather than Marx is saying, like, all we really need is, like, we need some YouTuber to actually take the step and, like, write a proper, like, a manifesto of some kind, like a treatise, a video treatise, not just a video essay.
Hegel is
a video manifesto.
Hegel is disappointing, and here's why. All right. Next we got is, are there situations when it's good for MapGo change? Like, what if a state is abolished, a bunch of countries unite, or some group gets independence?
I mean, yeah, like, it happens.
There are
usually when we talk about macro change, it's usually via war. But, like, let's say, for example, that, like, Scotland becomes independent. You could argue that that's pretty good. That could be pretty good for Scotland.
Yeah.
Probably not great for England.
I mean, what's it called? Self-induced injury. This is very much like, what's it called? This is very much that meme of the person riding the bicycle and sticking the stick in the spoke, and then
Fucking Scots.
yeah. Yeah, I think the joke about map go change that I think we were always talking about is that, like, map go change is that there's a weird thing, and it's usually in, like, the sort of alternate history mapper community of people who support very, like, things that would cause a lot of political chaos and honestly, like death and war and stuff like that, just because they really fetishize maps and they want to see it change. But they don't realize that a lot of times when maps go change, it's not always the Scots doing a referendum and having a peaceful transition process. It's way more often like the result of a civil war or something like that. And so, but there's people who just really like maps, and they just want to see they just want the map to be different, because it's what's it called? It's been 8 years since South Sudan last changed the map, and they're getting antsy.
They're getting antsy. God.
And so, like, you see situations like where you'll see, like, people in, like, the mapper community or in the alternate history community supporting, like, independence movements or things that they don't understand, because they just want to, they think that the map changing is more good because then it's new map.
Yeah.
There are situations, though, where independence would be, like, objectively good. Like, I am for Sahrawi independence, which has been living under the yoke of Morocco for a long time. I don't know. There's an independence movement going on right now in Ethiopia that I don't really understand enough to be able to speak coherently on, but that is, like, a thing that's happening. I don't know what's the deal with what's going on there. But, like, there's groups like Chechnya that have been trying to get independence from Russia for a long time. And then, like, but, like, there's times where map go change would be really bad. Like, I don't really think that those, like, Russian puppet states in eastern Ukraine should probably get independence.
Yeah. Because
they're just puppet states of Russia that is, like, very obviously was trying to annex Ukraine at one point.
It's the Donetsk and what the other one. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Where it's like, man, you sure are getting a lot of random pro-democracy volunteers that happen to have Russian military technology and happen to be
military-grade anti-aircraft guns.
Weirdest
They
thing.
just really like democracy, Zol. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
If you worry about it, you will go to jail.
Luhansk, there we go. Luhansk. Donetsk and Luhansk.
Yeah. All right. Is it ever okay to tell someone they shouldn't have been offended by something? On one hand, obviously you can't tell someone who thought something was racist that it wasn't. But on the other hand, a lot of privileged or nationalistic people get offended by things that hide their bigotry behind the offense. Other times, people don't know what they did was bad or offensive, and they may not know what to do under internet scrutiny. How can we navigate between such cases? The gamers are coming for us again. Because, yeah, like, there are times where people are offended for dumb reasons. Anytime you see an article that starts with "gamers mad," it's pretty much that.
Yeah.
That they removed a butt from video game or something. And
yeah, like, yeah, I mean,
offense taken by somebody who did something inappropriate out of ignorance is still, like, a legit thing to be offended by. Whether or not they deserve to, like, like, whether they deserve, like, a dog pile of hatred or something like that is a different topic altogether. But you're still...
yeah, I think, yeah, everyone has, like, a right to be offended, but I feel like the consequences for that offense depends, you know?
Yeah. If you do something horrible like a war crime or tweeting a heart emoji, then, death. But
yeah, death. Obviously, that's what you deserve.
I'm sorry. I should stop bringing that up. I imagine without.
It's fine. It's reached the point now where it's like it doesn't actually happen anymore. People have actually finally left my email in my email inbox at long last. So now it's fun.
I imagine it's. I'm like, all right. The joke's not at your expense, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, like the joke is that like weird people who are way too online, and fuck those people.
Mm-hmm. Every time, yeah. And there's a lot of times where there is people who are getting ginned up and angry over things that it's like, just go outside. I mean, not now because it's cold and there's virus.
But the pandemic. Right now, it's okay to be extremely online, but like.
Our society is falling apart because society in general is becoming more online.
Society is becoming more online. Unfortunately. I can't wait until this summer because last year, I got all the supplies I needed for like a camping trip on my own with like no connection to the outside world for like a week. And then pandemic hit and suddenly a lot of opportunities just shut down. And like just life stress. So this year, I'm hoping to finally log out for the first time in 28 years.
You're gonna go play Valheim in real life.
Yes. No, I literally am. I'm going to take a inflatable canoe and like you just go around Stockholm.
Defeat an elk.
Punch an ogre. Build a tree.
No, camping stuff.
Camping stuff.
That's like camping in Sweden. You go in. What's it called? You make an axe. You kill some greylings. You what's it called? Gather some flint from the river, so that you can build a longhouse. And make a bow to defeat. Oh, I played it over the weekend. It is enticing.
Is it good?
It is good. It's basically like a survival game, but it got rid of all the stuff that makes survival games annoying. So it's just the fun parts. Like, for example, like most survival games have like a completely annoying like food mechanic that's like you'll just start starving to death if you decide you took too long in cave. But this, it makes food, it makes eating like the more you eat, if your stomach is full, then you get more hit points. But if you're just going to hang around base and build, you don't need to, like, be constantly eating. That kind of stuff. And then, like, you just craft. You just vibe and craft. And then when you kill a boss, you get the ability to craft more things. And you get to explore. And it's all procedurally generated. So it's pretty fun. Apparently, I haven't played a whole lot of survival games, but I've been told it's basically, like, taking the loops that survival games, that make survival games good, and just keeping the stuff that's fun and getting rid of the stuff that's annoying. But other than that, it's like a fairly simple game.
I'll have to try it.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it so far. And also you can make a server with like your friends.
Oh, well, that's good. That's wholesome. I like that. I've been playing Stardew Valley with some friends. That's my version of logging off.
Nice.
Farming some frickin' parsnips.
I do try to internet less over the weekends now.
That's good. I've been doing that more and more the last year. It's done wonders for my mental health. Like I don't really work in the weekends, and I'm not super online anymore. Like I've been like binging The Office for the last couple of days. That's what I've been doing. It's really good. Like you do need a time to just like reset. Being online forever is bad.
The game that I mentioned was Valheim. Somebody asked in the chat.
Which I wonder what that means. I feel like it means like
the story of the game is that you're
God home.
Yeah, well, like the story of the game is that you're dead, and that you're on this island where you're supposed to prove to Odin that you're great enough to go to Valhalla, that kind of a thing.
Oh, okay.
And you have to prove yourself to Odin by surviving and conjuring like big monsters and killing them, like Vikings do.
Like Vikings.
What do you think is more likely or ideal for the future? That we all state our pronouns when we meet somebody, or that we all use they, them? Also, do you think less mainstream pronouns will become mainstream or well-known?
Interesting question.
So I guess the first one is, let's start with the question about what is like the ideal situation of, because like the pronouns and bio thing is becoming more and more mainstream, which is good. And talk like just pronouns being like a basic thing that we do at the beginning of conversations and stuff like that is creeping into mainstream discourse. Is the ideal situation that we'd have some way so that anybody would just know your pronouns through something, or that we default to gender neutral pronouns when we don't know somebody's pronouns?
Yeah, I feel like the defaulting to gender neutral is probably like the least worst option, but I feel like, you know, stating preferred pronouns is probably the one that's going to become more and more practical, because I feel like that's what more people are going to be okay with. I feel like using they them about everyone until we like know for sure it's going to be sort of I mean, that's kind of already the situation, but like doing it as a sort of like expecting a they them until confirmed otherwise, I feel like that's just going to annoy people more than anything else. I think just like, you know, stating pronouns is probably what's probably going to happen more. Neo pronouns though, like more like things like G, like C and Xer, for example, with the X. I don't think those are going to catch on super much. Like those were, I remember though, like, you know, people have them and they're very, you know, they're valid and everything. But they were, I remember them being like a lot more like prevalent, I feel like, in 2014, 2015. And people have sort of, because there was like almost no mainstream adoption of them at all, it's sort of fallen on like they them is sort of like the compromise solution for a lot of like for pronouns that don't fit into like he, him, or she, her. At least that's what happened in Sweden, where we just got a neutral pronoun, and now that's just a gender neutral pronoun.
Yeah, I will admit that I am fairly ignorant of neopronoun talk. I don't know very much about it. I know that it exists, but I don't know the discourse or anything about it. So I don't really want to have an opinion, because
yeah, honestly, I don't have that much of an opinion either. Like I'm hella binary, and I don't really use neopronouns, so I don't know, unfortunately, that much either. You should talk like that question. The second half of the question would probably be better stated to someone who like uses neopronouns and see what their take on it is. But as someone who is like in the trans sphere, I don't really see neopronouns that much anymore, except for like people I know who already use them. Like mainstream adoption of them isn't really happening from what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, one language change at a time, I think. Neopronouns might be more of a thing that we talk about when we've like really, really normalized non-binary gender identities, and like that we're not having the conversation over whether or not being trans at all is an issue. Like when, you know, Britain gets its shit together. But language changes, as people have seen, it can be an uphill process, and it can take a long time. And people really, really fight it. And so I guess like we're working on it. We'll see where it goes. It
may happen, may not. Language is weird.
I also like, in many ways, like I would be down for more like gender neutral pronoun usage in the same way that we've done so for like in English anyway, we've done for like degendering a lot of like job titles and random things. Like the fact that we no longer call you know, firefighters firemen and like things like that. And I don't know if this has happened in any of the Romance languages, but like trying to move away from just like the default he that happens in a lot of like old writing, that kind of stuff going away. I could see that kind of being a natural evolution of that, to just like not assume that somebody that you haven't met. But I think the biggest disconnection, or the biggest thing that we need to disconnect, is we still have a heuristic in our heads that's like you can assume somebody's pronouns based on just like your initial impression of how they look. That's still a thing that's ingrained in our brains that we need to break. And if we can do that, I think we're going to be in a good place. What language we use after that point, though, is for the linguists.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, like language would have to change to accommodate that, to the point where like pronouns, in the way we know them today, like gendered pronouns as we know them today, probably wouldn't. That discussion probably wouldn't even exist as we recognize it today, because that's like a big psychological change.
Yeah, and it's one that is that'd be good to do. Is that we should probably stop assuming that we can figure out somebody's pronouns just by our like vibe on what they look like our initial impression. Because okay. Suppose a symbol or habit or practice that is oppressive / problematic in one culture gets used in another culture out of context, i.e., e.g., Confederate flags used by European bikers because of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Also, suppose that a cultural trait that may be problematic evokes interest in a different culture, e.g., Native American villages in Europe, like you were discussing. Are those things bad, and should they be stopped even if they end up having a net good to non-harmful outcomes? Do they export racism, or does their decontextualization nullify racist undertones?
That's a good question. Like, obviously the context in which like statements and objects exist is what gives it their meaning. So like that really depends, right? I know that like the Native American villages at High Chaparral in Sweden is like a complicated thing, because like what a big part of it is like education, like educating about like Native American, like various Native American cultures and religions and practices and things like that, while at the same time being a little bit like voyeuristic, being like dressing up people as 19th century Native Americans, while also dressing up like as cowboys in a very like fun history romance thing. So like on the one hand it's educational, but on the other hand it's also like a bit decontextualized and a bit weird. I think the decontextualization of it does remove some of the racist undertones. It doesn't remove all of it, but removes some of it, because again, context is what gives things its meaning.
Yeah, I was like, so like, does the symbol, if you strip the semiotics of the symbol, oh boy, when you're saying semiotics, you're going to be in a fun place.
Oh, we're...
Semiotics is basically like the study of symbols.
Yeah, so like there's like the Confederate flag. Growing up here, for example, people would use it as a sort of like Americana culture. Now, because the world is more interconnected and we we have the news, we can see what's happening in America, and we have access to like American history, that sort of racist connotation makes its way here as well. But like in the 80s, when the Confederate flag was, for example, seen, like neo-Nazis would use it because they couldn't use the swastika, but it was also used by like just general like edgy car enthusiasts who really liked American culture and like liked the idea that like the idealized version of like a Southern American lifestyle, even though they had no idea what that actually meant. The idea there, the symbol there is different, still racist, but it takes on another life of its own. Yep. You know what I mean? Like it becomes an entirely different symbol that is problematic for a different reason.
To talk about a symbol that I know that you enjoy very much, is in the Lord of the Rings, the Dwarven people were written about by Tolkien as basically him making an allegory of Jewish people, and like kind of like an anti-Semitic stereotype. Now, now Tolkien dwarves have been appropriated by fantasy media over the decades in all sorts of different contexts. And in many ways, the like anti-Semitism that was baked into the development of such a thing, like I don't think there's people who would argue that this came up when we had Orc Talk a while back. Like I don't think that there's there is room to take a symbol that was made out of things that are like, harmful and full of hate, and to intentionally like strip them of their hateful connotation as a way of doing so. Like this, it's obviously very touchy and very complex, but this is, but it is a thing that you can do. Swastika is a tough one though, because it is at the same time it is a very deep and very painful symbol of hate, and it is a extremely important religious symbol for one of the largest religions on the planet.
It's probably one of the most extreme cases, right, where a symbol can have like very opposite meanings. So yeah, like I think it's a bit of both. Like this is where symbols like go into sort of gray area. Like outside of their context, they do become decontextualized, but they can't ever be free from the meaning. You know what I mean? Like they will always be connected to it, but the significance of that connection will vary. Like if I don't know, like if an American, for example, sees a Confederate flag here in Sweden, for example, that connection will still be strong, even if the cultural connection here is lessened. So the impact still exists, even if the cultural impact of it might be different. So at that point, we're talking about like the differences of how symbology impacts like individuals and society at large, which will be also entirely different.
What's it called? I guess what we'd have to say, it's a land of contrast. No, it's a complicated process that takes time and can be abused in weird ways. Like the Confederate flag, as an example, as a symbol of just like Southern culture or whatnot, is not distant enough from like the age of like segregation that is still in living memory. And in many ways, like if you think about like Confederate flags used for like the General Lee, like the what's it called, the fucking, I'm trying to remember what that TV show was called, but like that TV show that made everybody God, where's that? Why am I not remembering? Probably people are yelling at it in the chat right now. But like it comes like from a intentional Confederate reimagining that was part of the reaction against the civil rights movement. And so that is a problem. And in many ways, like, yeah, the Dukes of Hazzard, that was it. And all I can say is like, I think that in many ways, there's no overarching policy you can have for this, and that it's always going to be a messy, complicated conversation. Always. There's never going to be like a clear way to like, break it out through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's complicated. I feel like anthropologists have been trying to crack this nut for a long time.
Historians are really infuriating to talk to because they only have one answer to every question, and that is it's complicated.
It's complicated. I don't know. Maybe.
That's what happens when you have an academic field that's entire theoretical structure is built on, as opposed to every other field trying to reduce simplicity and to reduce theory and to move more towards broad and thicker description.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are actually at 2:01, and I would like for you to tell all the wonderful people on the internet where they can consume your content before we go and rate Emily.
You can. Oh my god. Sorry. You can consume my content at twitter.com/potatopolitics, where I shitpost each and every day. You can watch my video essays on youtube.com/c/miamulder or on miamulder.com, which isn't a real website, but it will take you to my YouTube channel, or on watchnebula.tv/miamulder. No, I think it's .com. watchnebula.com/miamulder. Or on twitch.tv/miamulder. I'm also there.
Alrighty. And now we will start the raid. Of course, I'll be around tomorrow night, and I hope that you guys take care of yourselves and each other, and we all be good to each other, especially now. Take care.
Yeah. Be kind.